All right, welcome everyone to the March 8th Public Health and Safety Committee. First, I just want to start with introductions. Today we have Executive Director of the Ambulance, Al Davey, with us, and Jeff Alden, Chief String, Mayor Deutsch, and committee members Mike Samuelson, Cindy Rickards, and myself, Jean Laura. We're going to actually, I have a quick announcement before we move on to the agenda. Just about the electric vehicle charging station. The 125 Marion Avenue EV charger is now fully activated and operational. And as a reminder, cars parked in the EV spaces that aren't charging will be subject to ticketing between the hours of 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. 7 days a week. And residents and visitors using those dedicated spaces will have a 1 hour grace period to, after finishing, to move their cars. And this reminder is also going to be posted on the borough newsletter, and people can find out more information about the EV charger locations and a full list on the borough's website. So moving on to approval of the minutes for February 9th, 2024. Make a motion.
I will move to approve the minutes of the Public Health and Safety Committee for February 9th, 2024.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, minutes are approved. And moving on to our second agenda item, we have the presentation from Mr. Ambulance.
Cool. Is that charger a level 2 charger?
Yes, it's a level 2 charger.
Sorry, personal interest.
Please go use it.
Yeah, what's the rate?
15 cents.
Yeah, go ahead.
15?
Yeah.
That's really good. I was down in Ocean City and it was 50 cents an hour.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah, normally I get between 30 and 40 cents, so you're being super benevolent. Yeah, it's such a weird, wherever you go, you're at the mercy. So we'll see what Suburban Square puts in. That'll be the real San Jose charge, whether they're trying to encourage business or not. Okay, so thanks for inviting me. Matt was, we had we connected a couple months ago, and he explained that this committee exists, which is tremendous. Lower Marion has one as well, and so we started with them, and it's just we're 911 provider. The only committee we really should be reporting to is, Matt when I have my annual request, and you guys as far as what actually transpires within your township. So, but for those who don't know, Narberth Ambulance is while it bears the namesake of the borough, we are the exclusive 911 provider for Narberth, Lower Marion, Conshohocken, West Conshohocken, Haverford Townships, and Lansdowne Fire Company. We do about 14,000 calls a year, so over 30 times a day. That's why you think, man, they're always using those sirens. We really are. But for us, it's after when COVID hit, we put out an appeal, and a lot of generosity came through, and the board kind of made the decision that there'll be more outreach, there'll be more connectivity with our respective partners. And so if there's anything, I always leave a room, whatever you need, please don't hesitate to reach out. Some places reach out when there's a problem, some reach out because they want CPR training or something that we offer. So, but ultimately the goal would be just to kind of, if you have any questions, I'm just going to be that point guy. There is an operational liaison that deals with more of the day-to-day stuff, and that's Matt Scanlon. The Scanlon family is well known in the borough, so we don't have to worry about that. But Matt's the ground guy. He's going to take most of the complaints. Mine is a much more larger overview. As the executive director, it's just basically making sure that the company runs effectively. I'm responsible for my board, and I'm also a paramedic, so I also sit on the clinical care, which is why you have some clinical and operational data in front of you. So we just got this 2 weeks ago, so this is our annual report that's in your packet. That'll kind of just go over what some of the highlights that we do as a nonprofit, you're supposed to do an annual report at a certain threshold. So we've gotten better over the last couple of years. We're certified gold on GuideStar. Well, it's not called GuideStar anymore, but the goal for us to be a respected nonprofit. So it's some of our highlights, and the larger we get, the more we're able to do these kinds of things because we're just in more people's worlds. And then the back is a quick breakdown of our funding stream, and then the back is in August 11th, we will do our annual fundraiser, the Ardmore Rock and Ride. So that's it. I have no ask of this committee. I am not here with a handout. This is a public information session only. I am not. I am grateful for your commitment. I can happily expand on that, but what Narberth Borough does, you get a great discount for bearing our name. The other part of the packet is basically a rundown. There's two sections, one with a paperclip. That's kind of a clinical look at exactly what what goes on in your borough, and the other is more of an operational report. So when somebody complains, they always seem busy, or I had to wait, you can kind of come back at them with some data. So the first 2 pages are quite simple, the hours of the day and the days of the week. So if you put those two together, if you want to call at 5 in the morning on a Tuesday, that's the best time to get an ambulance. You don't want to call at 1 o'clock on a Friday in the afternoon. So again, these are just barometers. This is done from January 1 of 22 because 2020 and 21 data is quite terrible and quite inconsistent at best through COVID. So, that kind of runs down your call volume, the average response time to Narberth Borough on the transports of this 349 calls was 7 minutes and 17 seconds. So we're pleased with that. That's actually almost 40 seconds lower than our average response time to the rest of our response area, and you can understand trying to get the ballot at 5 o'clock or trying to get the Villanova at the top end of the district. So,
I'm sorry, just to confirm, this is Narberth Borough data,
Specifically.
not post, not the post.
not the whole system.
This
It
is the borough.
Yeah, so what we do is, and again, we have 140 members all entering data, so if you're a data person, it's kind of like a little garbage in, a little garbage out kind of thing. And when I say that, it's quite simple that you guys don't have your own zip code when you share with Penn Valley. So there may be some Penn Valley addresses in here. And we tell our providers, you know your township by the cop who's on scene. So if you see the Narberth patch, you're in Narberth. And that's how we delineate. So until they get kind of seasoned as our providers, sometimes there's a couple that sneak through. So while not truly, I wouldn't hang my hat on this for, the thing, it is within 3% error. But these are Narberth specific figures. Again, I did it as who does a 26-month snapshot? Like a data person would kill me on that. But ultimately I thought, I wanted to put as much information in front of you as possible.
Are these up to date?
From this morning.
From this morning, okay.
Yeah.
I'm in there.
So.
I say this out, and John, I'm going to kick this over to you. I think these data are important for the community to understand.
Agreed.
I mean, your highest numbers are for behavioral health at a quick glance on this.
Yes, and one of the lowest is overdose.
Substance
So
abuse
we are.
disorders and mental health, and that is something.
Well, no, overdose and substance abuse has its own.
Right.
You're in the clinical, yeah.
Yeah, I'm on the clinical. Yeah, just looking at that,
She's
the
ahead.
most
I didn't get to the
calls you
clinical.
get are really something that, John, I know you've been addressing in partnerships with the school and expanding kind
Yes.
of what public health and safety looks like.
So.
We should make these, these are public
This is
data.
really interesting.
No, and that's kind of the thing.
Share that,
But
yeah.
I will tell you that behind that, there may be, I will tell you that our business has shifted so that we used to go for the chest pain, which we would then put an EKG and all that kind of stuff and rule out panic attack, and we would label that cardiac. Over the last several years, that pendulum has swung
Got it.
to now it's not, it's more behavioral. And again, our clinicians have gotten better, and the way in which they're triaged has gotten better as
So you
well.
code it differently now.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so the bad news is the cardiac ones usually get paid, the behavioral ones usually don't from the insurance companies. So.
Well, that's important for people to know, though. I mean, that's actually really
No, I agree. It is a super hot topic, and it is
Yeah.
one that, we know everything about the heart. We do. It's pumps, we understand its automaticity, we understand every part about it. we're still putting stickers on the head and looking for color changes. We know nothing about the brain. We just don't. And so for us to start, and some of these things are, John will tell you that, and he and I go way back, way back. De-escalation techniques, sometimes that can actually result in a non-transport. Again, a hospital is not always where you need to be.
Right.
And so we've seen that pendulum shift with some telemedicine. We've seen some of that pendulum shift with the urgent care centers. And we've watched our numbers we thought would go down as a result of all these other pieces of the puzzle. Our call volume's at an absolute high. I can't stop. I would love for us to do 10% less calls. Our providers are exhausted.
So can I ask, I'm sorry, I'm looking at my phone because someone just shared with this me, and I didn't realize this was something over COVID, the victim service of Montgomery County, where you can call and they'll route you and dispatch a mobile, John, I'm sorry, looking at you.
So this is
dispatch the
MCOR.
mobile mental health
Yeah.
crisis team? Is that something that you
So there are two products that exist. So there is a stress management group that works out of the Department of Health. That's different. We have a separate one that works for us called the MCORT, the Montgomery County Overdose Response Team.
Okay.
So if we go to an overdose and you go to the hospital, or you most likely don't go to the hospital, the county will then dispatch a unit with a certified counselor and a paramedic to come down within 24 hours of that overdose and talk to you.
Yeah.
And they have direct placement into facilities. If you seek treatment, it's great. I mean, it's part of the Purdue settlement.
Yeah.
They've got this program at least for another 2 years. And if they don't, they'll even leave behind the Narberth ambulance has a leave behind Narcan program. So if we do that, if there's an abuse component, we just leave a box of Narcan, the inhalation one.
And do you do those trainings, the Narcan trainings?
Yeah, we did 3 in Conshohocken, and then 2 in Lower Merion. No, 3 in Lower Merion, 2 in Conshohocken.
We should consider doing that.
I was
It's so
beat me
easy.
to it.
It's
I would
I have
love
it
to
in my
be
bag.
trained.
But no, look, it's the first prescription in the state of Pennsylvania that's been prescribed without a name. You can walk in any CVS, give them $40 and get a pack. Nothing in Pennsylvania gets through any kind of physicians or any kind of group that does it. It's a legitimate thing. I mean, I will tell you, in 2017, we gave 11 doses of Narcan. I'm sorry, in 2011, we gave 17 doses of Narcan for the year.
Yeah,
In 2017, we gave 11 in January.
yeah.
We should
So-
talk about.
Yeah, I would very much like to have the borough sponsor
Yeah.
I mean,
training.
I
I would like to do it myself.
Yeah, sure. I mean, honestly, I bring a mannequin, I bring all our trainers, and you squeeze something in the nose. It takes 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Don't overthink this.
No.
Your numbers for a
but I
township don't pan out that you have a problem, that you don't even have a scourge, you don't even have an issue, you don't have a blip. You have more alcohol problems than you have overdose problems. So great that you're insulated. But as we teach CPR for somebody who may never push on a chest,
Yeah.
we would happily teach Narcan
Yeah.
and stop the bleed training for people who may never put on a tourniquet or give a inhalation.
Yeah, we should do that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we can do CPR market, like do a whole day, just a combination.
I'm not here to sell anything. I don't. The answer is yes. We will take care of you. There are costs associated with each one, which I'm happy to discuss. This is not a pitch meeting. I wanted to try stuff. But ultimately, these are all community-focused things that really do have a home. And again, we are the Lower Merion Township. We did them, and we trained all of their employees in CPR and first aid. And then they came back and said, well, the community didn't get anything. So they found, they budgeted $1,500. We're going to do one class, and that's not what it costs. I don't want you to freak out, but and if they get more than the 25 we've capped the class at, we'll expand it. So the idea is we'll go wherever somebody is willing to listen to us and willing to take the training. And some of these are, we print out like happy certificates, but some of them are American Heart Association 2-year certifications. So we can figure that out. But the answer is if that's something, if you guys should be pushing towards, your community, this is an easy climb. Sure.
Yeah, and I also think it's helpful to people to understand if you think you're having an acute mental health crisis, your insurance may not cover the ambulance. So this is an alternative phone number that you can call. I do think it behooves us to kind of share that information.
Sure.
Although I suspect you probably say if you're having chest pain, you should defer to 911.
Look, the best part is, and simultaneously one of the worst things is, the first 15 minutes of emergency room are in the back of my ambulance.
Right.
That's it. I don't want to, I only know this because the first 15 minutes of any medical care is based on the classes of advanced cardiac life support and pediatric advanced life support. We teach the physicians at Narberth. So the same doctors we're heading off to, we're doing it. Our ambulance is going to give you EKG, we're going to check your blood sugar, we'll do your blood pressure, we'll do all the vital signs, but we can actually take a 12 lead and we can interpret it, we can send it off to the ER, telemetry. They'll look at it, we'll consult, and if they don't see anything, we'll leave you where you found it. We do what are called, check of the well-beings or public safety assessments, which we call them. And we go to your house and we'll check your blood pressure, put you on, check your oxygen levels, blood glucose, every EKG, 12 lead, 4 lead, the whole deal. We'll do all of that. And at the end of that assessment, if you just go, I don't want to go to the hospital, we slide a piece of paper, you sign a refusal, we don't go. And you don't get charged.
We're not charged.
There's no
See,
charge.
that I think is so important.
Yeah.
For people to know.
Yeah, because I think people are hesitant to call because they.
No, they're not hesitant.
Oh, really?
We get things like, we get it from, the daughter in Florida
Oh, yeah.
calls up here and says, I can't get my mom, and they dispatch you guys, you walk in, feed her on the floor, you go, yeah, give me an ambulance. And that's what happens.
Yeah.
We do check of the well-beings all the time, because when they just can't reach them, it's because their phone's off the hook. Or they got that fall detection from the thing that they wear around their neck. We do them.
Life alert?
Yeah, what's nice is it used to be, it was tied to your phone. Now they're GPS equipped because there's a chip in there. So if you fall at the bagel shop, we have to go find you there. So it puts out a little geocode and then we can come find you. So it's a great job. It's just really, there's so many things that we're being asked to do. Our guys are not trained in behavioral management. EMTs get trained 1 3-hour class.
Yeah.
That's it.
Limited, very limited.
Yeah.
And the medics get like 2 days because we have medications that can kind of take care of those situations. We carry 5 narcotics on our truck. Some of them are very helpful in managing excited delirium and those kinds of things where the behavioral issue has become violent or has become a detriment to either the safety of the person or the crew. So we have those tools. There's a lot of safeties in place, and some of them need a physician's phone call. But in the initial crisis, no, we have lots of things that can mitigate further harm to the patient or to those rendering care.
I think that would be really helpful, a kind of behavioral health and 911 and Narcan.
Sure. We'll have a conversation outside of this. These are, again, you prioritize what, we usually look at the community and then decide what needs to happen versus, listening to the thing, because you guys are responsible for your borough. That's what your soul is.
It does look like the vast majority of our calls are for weakness, back injury, and other injuries.
Number one call in for our entire system are falls. It's just what happens. You age in your place, you don't want to give up your house, and you fail slowly. Usually it's a fall, and then finally it's a fall that has a damage where you go to rehab, and then you're unable to live alone.
Can't get it.
And then and then we send you to Waverly, Beaumont if you have money, and we send you to Saunders or Gold Living if you don't. So these are the challenges that aging in place is by far the hardest thing, and what really Medicare and those are trying to figure out best ways to keep you safely in your home.
Those are the biggest challenges.
They are.
In general.
They are.
Those are the biggest challenges.
Yes. So if you came to this, if you came here in the heyday of Narberth in the 50s and 60s, and you were a 25-year-old person, and you look at the clock now, you're in your 70s and 80s, and you're aging out of your home. Now, the good news is, being priced out of paradise here, you have a younger group as your demographics describe. Not the case in Lower Merion. Lower Merion is the oldest township in Pennsylvania.
Wow.
More people live over the age of 90 in Lower Merion than anywhere else because of Kepling Veal. It's very impressive.
That is, I'm going to quote you when I teach next term. That's fabulous.
Is that including like the people
They just,
or you're talking about
all
people living in home?
all of it. But the idea here is that they follow up with doctors, they take their medicines, they have resources, they have insurances.
Yes.
And in turn, if you do everything right, you're supposed to live a long time. So it's an interesting dynamic.
People don't wanna leave their houses.
Well, people
It's
put
not,
up
that's,
money
Yeah.
to stay in their house.
Yeah, I mean, if you got the
That's
money
what
to
it
stay
is.
at home and have
Exactly.
and help and all that.
But there's
kind of
people who
stuff.
don't have money.
I know, but
don't
that's
wanna
why
help
the
either.
American population
That's
is.
where they get in trouble.
no, I will tell you that we just took over Lansdowne. It's in Delaware County, by the old, I can't remember the high school. Anyway, it's just outside of Darby Borough. I've never seen, our medics are like, we see, which wing are we going into? It's around here, even in Haverford.
Yeah.
And when we got down there, you go into a house and there's lawn furniture in the living room. That's all it is. We have not seen this level of poverty. And as Delaware County is all collapsing as far as their EMS system, we're going farther and farther. We had 160 calls into Darby Borough and Upper Darby, and we're seeing poverty like
I
we've
didn't
never
realize
seen.
you guys cover 50 square miles.
It is ridiculous.
That's
Huge.
insane.
That,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and you're based out of Ardmore, right?
No, so luckily we have six
Oh, you do?
stations.
Okay,
Six
okay.
stations. We have a station up in Conshohocken.
Okay.
One here, the main station, which is in Ardmore, right behind Trader Joe's. And then 2 stations in Haverford, one in the college,
Okay.
at Haverford College, and one at the Township Building at Darby and Eagle, and then Lansdowne's where they're fired.
This is important data because, we propose to make evidence-based decisions and, fall data really has an influence on how do we support people for taxing policy to age in place, how do we look at zoning variances to allow folks to, manipulate their housing to be able to
Yes.
stay in place. So, this is important. I'm glad you provided this.
You should have this data. You should have this data on, we'll work on figuring out the best way to have this in your possession, but if at any minute you feel like you don't have something that you could use for an argument or use for, a policy, if you think there's an EMS component, just, Matt will give you my email. I absolutely will be happy to provide all sorts
We
of.
actually provide monthly reports at our business meetings.
Okay.
So we have police reports, public works reports, code enforcement reports. We can just incorporate that as part of our monthly reports, here's how many calls we got, similar to the police department, so at least people can see, what the call volume is, what we're getting, and I think that might help.
So so you should already be getting our operations report, which literally has a breakdown of every township and the call volume and the transports that we do.
So I'm not, but maybe,
You'll give me your email?
yeah.
We'll add you to the
We've got
list.
a lot of turnover here, so
It's
Samantha's
fine,
here.
it's fine, I love Samantha, so she was great. and
No,
she
what I'm
was-
saying is it could have been maybe going to her account, or maybe
Sure.
it was, or,
Yes, stop there. Yes, the answer is yes.
Yes, okay.
But that kind of runs down what, so the last one is the call volume by disposition, so you can see on this chart, on the chart, literally, just because we respond to over 400 calls in that span, only 248 of them went to the hospital.
Yeah.
So we're more than just, we pick you up and we drop you off.
Yeah.
We're gonna be a lot more than that. And then finally, everyone wants to know where do you go to the hospitals? And so, of your 350 transports, we go to Lankenau most of the time, 250 times, 90 to Bryn Mawr, but every once in a while we get some kid that just has to go downtown. Every once in a while somebody has some kind of specific treatment that they need, and we'll wind up going somewhere weird, like you see Einstein Montgomery.
That's all the way out.
It is.
Yeah,
that's
It is.
far, yeah.
That was a cancer treatment. They were under a specific trial. So we had to. We don't like to. It takes us out of our coverage area. Makes it hard for the next 911 request.
Yeah.
So it's an issue. And then the Jefferson one was supposed to be, it was a spinal injury. So each one of these has those kinds of specific, yeah. So Lankenau is our primary trauma center, but things that are specific, we try to honor the patient's request. It's hard because we don't want to lose that truck for the hour and a half it goes down to the city, hands on the patient and comes back. We use mutual aid as a cover. So the problem here is that we're bordered by a city that does not help us. We're bordered by a river we can't cross. And so after we exhaust all of our resources, the next truck you're going to get is from White Marsh.
Wow.
So, or Upper Marion. So, and that's why we have a much higher expectation for us to do quick turnarounds, for us to move. So getting a patient off our truck, off our stretcher is a priority. And harder to do right now. ER wait times are at a peak. So, the primary injury breakdown, you can see as this simple Excel spreadsheet, it had a beautiful cover, but it was factoring out way too much. So at least you can see exactly where you wind up. Again, your cardiac arrest and dysrhythmia numbers are low, so, you know, you're living healthier. I do that is tied to a younger population as far as if we run the query on age ranges. This borough is considerably younger. But you can kind of look at exactly where your calls and what they look like. And again, you can have multiple things, so this is not tied directly to, not everybody has one problem. You may start with a shortness of breath, and it might be due to pneumonia and you have a fever. So you might check 2 boxes, primary and secondary, or how these are tracked. And then we separate trauma, which is the primary injury breakdown. So that's where you see almost 20% of your non-medical emergencies are falls. And that's kind of where that all goes through. But you don't have a animal bite issue. You have 3 in 2.5 years, you're fine. And as far as guns, 1 call in 26 months, you're doing just fine. That's not that's not a murder. That just is could be an accidental discharge, could be whatever. So, but those are your numbers. I thought that was as comprehensive as I can get. If there's things you want to expand on, if there's things and questions that, you know, data always creates more questions for data, we'll drill down on it and see if we can get you the
This
answer.
information can be included in the monthly report, rather than knowing?
We'll just, again, we'll have a separate conversation about what you want in that thing. I mean, we'd like to mirror what your police and fire do. But the clinical stuff, these are, you know, we're talking literally only a couple, I mean, we're talking 200, 300 calls a year tops in this thing. The numbers are not going to be, you know, jarring. So know that, you know, this looks great, the numbers look great, there's more meat here to bite, but that's because I can go back 20.
And just to be clear, the null, does that mean that you didn't transport? Is that what
They don't go to the hospital at all.
Okay, so that's important to know. I mean,
Yeah.
355 were no transport, so just keep that in consideration, right?
But that's over, again, 26 months. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, there's a lot of use of our service without the actual thing. And if we don't transport, we don't get paid.
Right.
The system is designed, and so
How
those.
do you cover that? Just, that's where our donation
No
is.
one would get into this business as a business. It is
Right.
quite terrible.
Yeah.
Right.
The ambulance itself has 4 buckets. We lose money on the 911 system in every township we work at except for Lower Marion and Haverford, because the call volume fixes everything. If you were to have an ambulance for yourself, it would cost you, and an ALS truck, it would cost you $900,000. And the ambulance could at best make, you know, they would do 200 calls a year.
Yeah.
You'd be lucky to make 100,000 of that back.
Yeah.
So, you know, it doesn't make sense for you. You know, it doesn't make sense for Conchi or West Conchi. And so, no, it's a terrible business. I can't charge what I need to. I'm capped by Medicare and Medicaid rates. Even if you have insurance, we fight with those guys on a daily basis. Norbert does their own internal billing. So we get to actually talk to the insurance companies directly. So when your people have a conversation or complain about their bill, you're going to forward them to us. We're going to help them. Most of the time, the insurance company denies because every dollar they don't spend, they keep.
Yeah.
And they are the most horrific people and a horrific business model that exists.
And I personally had an experience where your folks helped me get my insurance company to pay.
And that's it.
And it was very helpful.
And we offer that to every person. It's terrible because an insurance company won't talk to us directly.
Yeah.
You have to call and then 3-way us into the conversation.
Yeah.
Then we have official conversations that we can speak to them on their level
Yeah.
and say the right buzzwords that get us some of the payment. And it's a bad system.
You don't do authorizations that allow you to.
No, the way it works out is when you're in an emergency,
Yeah.
we tend not to be able, let me make some phone calls and see if they're covered.
No, but after, so I do a lot of health insurance coverage.
Okay.
Well, so I share your,
Okay. No,
regard
they're
for the
incentivized
health
not to
insurance
tell.
companies. I can tell you
They're
stories of
yeah.
ridiculous denials I've seen over the years.
So,
But one thing that, you know, at least under, if you have your insurance through your employer, the ERISA now, the rules now allow for the healthcare provider under an authorization to do the direct without having them on the phone. It
Sure.
just makes it so much easier.
but you have to be contracted.
Right. You
Yeah,
have to.
no 911 entity can be contracted because I would have to contract with hundreds of services.
No. You can have authority from the patient.
Oh, yeah, no, I agree.
So without having to get them on the phone, if you do the written authorizations.
Yeah, so,
that's the first thing I do is.
IBX will, US Healthcare will, Humana won't, Geisinger won't, UPMC won't. So we've got
They
some,
have to now.
I'm with you.
So-
But we have ones who,
We
you
should,
know, they're still sending our checks to the patient's house.
Yeah.
And then they have to drop it off. And then we have to submit and go for a second request for the non-compensated rate. It's terrible. It's an absolute terrible business. But the goal here is if you have residents who state that they've received an exorbitant bill, I assure you, let us work it out. Let us work with them and become their advocates, because it's terrible. And they are put in, they're either uninsured or underinsured, or they have a high deductible plan that makes it very difficult for them to seek. I don't want you to be the ones taking flack or the leadership to take flack. I absolutely want us to be the ones who, you would not, bring an outsider in unless you trusted them. We will earn that.
It was very helpful, because it was a $2,000 bill. Yeah.
And so, everybody sets their rates, and ours are, luckily for us, lower than most. Plymouth charges almost $4,000.
It's crazy.
It is ridiculous. And it's a bad business.
And for the average patient, that's a major stressor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
considering if you're over 65 and you have Medicare,
Yeah.
we just have to take the $400. It's it's such a terrible racket. It's such a terrible business. But we're grateful that this is a wealthy area that has insurance and does, and if we can work with the system, it's great.
We are grateful for you as well.
So, I think I've taken.
What you do and,
So
that's support that you offer to the Hawaii community.
Oh, that's fun.
Really important service.
what I do?
Does everyone tell you look like Tim Kaine?
Tim Kaine?
Tim Kaine,
He's Fairfax County
Senator from
Senator,
Virginia.
Vice President
Oh,
nominee.
Yeah.
I know the receiving here. I usually get the guy from Modern Family.
You're wrong, you're Tim Kaine.
Much more Tim Kaine.
Yeah.
And then I get,
100%.
and then when I'm at full clip, it's more Chris Farley. So
No, Tim Kaine.
No,
Tim Kaine.
it's definitely Tim Kaine.
But yeah, no. So anyway, I've taken 30 minutes. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
If there's anything else, please share my information, Matt. And I appreciate the access to you guys. If there's a reason to come back, I'm happy to do so. But I don't want to be a guy that adds to the length of any meeting.
I really appreciate you coming by.
Cool.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay.
As a complete side note, I've called the Narberth Ambulance. There are a number of uncashed claims from Pennsylvania, unclaimed monies from Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And Narberth Ambulance has a laundry list of unclaimed stuff, and all you have to do is download the stuff.
No, I did it personally.
And collect the money, but Narberth Ambulance has a list of.
We put a lot of riders on people's estates. So.
Okay, but you've been paid and the money's sitting there for you.
Your hobby.
It is a hobby.
She only takes 10%, it's okay.
Yeah, I'm not allowed, because you have to be a finder if you do, but please check that out, because a number of them are over 100. They only list over and under, and just so please, I called them, and, but it looks like nobody got to it, and you have money just sitting there waiting for you.
Yeah, I mean, we take people to court if they get their money and they don't pass the checks to us.
Yeah.
They just keep it. They can't profit off their emergency.
Yeah.
And so we have liens against a lot of properties in the township.
File the paperwork.
We'll find it. We'll find it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was look at that. I came to offer, and I leave with something. All right. Thanks, guys.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
You will.
All right. Okay, so moving down our agenda.
There's a nice weather.
That's gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
See you.
Agenda item number 3, we have discussion items, 3.1, additional trash collection in the business district. Matt, do you want to talk about that?
Thanks, Gene, and thanks, Al. Just to follow up and conclude Al's visit, Al and I talked about his updates when we met a couple months ago. And this is something that I would like this committee to get into the habit of inviting him on an annual basis just to touch base and have him give an update. I think, especially as the data changes and updates and the trends change, I think it would be really helpful for this committee. Really quickly, I know we're running short on time here. I wanted to start the discussion on additional trash pickups that were included in the previous trash contract and this trash contract, and these are ones that were not included in the trash contract. So previously, there were a series of, there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, there were 8 locations that we were picking up extra that were not included in the trash contract that was bid. It was incurring an additional cost of about $47,000 on an annual basis. And that number was being absorbed in the solid waste fund. Through this new trash contract with JP Mascaro, I've been able to eliminate all but one of these locations. And the location that's not, they can't just, that has to be additionally picked up is the 3 dumpsters located along Commerce Lane. And those dumpsters are borough-owned, borough-maintained, and borough-serviced. And those serve the business community in downtown Narberth. And so I've been watching it for the past 2 months. I've been coordinating with some business owners downtown. And it really does require a twice a week pickup at those locations. And so I've negotiated that with our current trash hauler, JP Mascaro, and I've got that number down to, it's about $1,000 a month for additional pickups for those locations. So that is over a year, $12,000. So it's a savings of just under 74% from what we were paying in the previous contract. Now, my ultimate goal is to not continue for the borough to eat those costs. Unfortunately, given that it serves the business community, my recommendation will be for council to amend the trash ordinance. I believe that I'm not sure about the path forward yet. It might require an update to the ordinance where council will consider creating a business overlay district for trash, and we can assess a special fee for those businesses that use those dumpsters so they start paying for the twice a week pickup. So I don't have any details about what that looks like yet. I wanted to start the conversation and give this committee an update about where we are at, in case you've heard anything from business owners who use those dumpsters. That extra collection has started this week. So I wanted to get that in process before the summer months. If you've ever walked along Commerce Lane, it's not the most nicest walk in the borough, especially in the summertime. So wanted to put that on the radar of this committee, and that's something that I anticipate we will continue discussing at future committee meetings. And I'm hoping that the council can consider taking action no later than the first of the year in 2025 regarding this extra pickup.
Great. Quick question. So you talked about the option of doing a business overlay district and a special fee. Is that just for those businesses that are using that Commerce Lane dumpsters, or? So that's right. Good question. And that's what I'm still trying to figure out on. How do we assess who pays for the extra pickup, right? Is it a district where we just draw a polygon around parcels, and council can define that border, everyone within that border pays for the extra? Or do we assign, do we pick and choose, this parcel has a food service, this one is using it, this one is using it, this one is not, and only assess those ones? Those are the details I can't make a recommendation to this committee yet as to which approach I would recommend moving forward with.
There are absolutely businesses that use the vast majority of those trash cans or dumpsters, and there are others who don't go near it.
It's food service.
It's food service. Yeah, the food
service.
It's a
different category.
The restaurants are heavily used. It's heavily used by restaurants.
Yes.
Well, thank you for doing all of that background work and also eliminating some of those costs for the borough and the other organizations.
Thank you.
Matt, just so it's clear, so we went from 40K a year down to 12K a year.
That's correct.
47 or?
47, just under 47,000.
Okay.
It's a massive drop. That's
Yeah.
For the business.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that was, me making, looking at the list that we were picking up on and working, and thanks to, Jeff Eldon for his work with this too, and rolling out the new trash contract and making sure that we were not picking up these other locations and not having them pay for it. Another thing that we will be doing is invoicing the exempt properties that have not been paying for trash, those that are exempt from property tax, but they should not be exempt from fees such as trash and sewer. And so we also have that coming up, and I propose that I'll have an updated fee schedule for council to consider that defines what those fees should be. And we're talking about St. Margaret's School and the churches, and there are some residents that are, parsonages that also generate trash and sewer.
Matt, there used to be dumpsters behind the 230 property, Haverford Avenue, that were used by businesses. I don't know what's...
Yep. Okay, good. Yep, good question. They're still there, and thankfully, that was a location that was on the additional pickup list, but because of the current state of that property, it just doesn't generate enough trash that warrants a second pickup. And so, if you remember, I know everybody's trying to forget the long night, the conditional use discussion, we did talk about trash collection for this property, and that a single once a week pickup will be included at that location. Anything additional, the property owner will have to pick up and pay for. So the borough will not be paying for that second pickup at that location.
Okay, because currently there's no businesses or on that side of the street, very limited.
Yes.
Once they're filled, I would anticipate heavier use.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Anything else? All right. Moving on to the next agenda item, which is 3.2, plastic bag ordinance update. So do you want to talk about that a little bit? Or?
Yeah, well, we kicked off the plastic bag and straw regulation in the state of Pennsylvania, and lots of municipalities followed suits. Most now are now banned on bags. In neighboring Lower Merion, Philadelphia, Radnor, we're actually now the last person. We're kind of one of the last few to kind of get on board with the updated bags. And we did have some business owners actually email to say, why are we still using bags? So the EAC reviewed this and teed it up. Walco had done a cursory tee up of this. We just kind of put it on pause. We were going to include styrofoam as well.
So now it bans also styrofoam products, and then there's a fee for paper bags that are not
They're not recycled. They're reused already.
No, there's a fee for
paper bags.
recycled bags, and the non-recycled bags are banned.
Yeah.
Right.
So that just mirrors again Lower Merion, Radnor, and abroad.
Right, was this passed?
No, this was teed up, and then we had kind of office.
I signed it.
Oh, we did pass it. We did.
Yeah, I signed it.
Right, we're talking about after that was passed. That
It's
was
a delayed implementation.
It was the delayed implementation.
It's
Okay.
adopted,
A year
it goes
from
into
now.
effect in September.
Right.
And we're about 6
okay.
months out from September, so what we're trying to do is get the ball rolling with notifying everybody, getting the word out that.
I thought we backburnered that because we had administration.
No, it was.
No, I signed it. I
So the
signed it.
rollout is in September.
Yeah.
And the businesses are supposed to be posting conspicuous signage regarding the changes to the ordinance.
Okay.
And so I'm working with the staff to create a flyer
visual.
of some sort
Yeah, great.
that they can easily print out, and then we can push that out to the Neighborhood Business Association and through the borough website and borough newsletter and whatever other means.
It would be very handy if we could just hand the flyer out for the businesses to post so that they don't have to go.
No, that's what we're doing.
I hand
Yeah.
delivered them last time.
Yeah. Mhm.
To all 5A, all Montgomery Avenue, and we created a little visual with a QR code and put them in little plastic,
Mhm.
and every business got to put it in.
Yeah, that way it's uniform, it's people know what they're.
Yeah, we just put it on the agenda just to kind of get the,
Keep it going.
keep it in the light, get everybody
people's-
on board and knowing
Right.
that this is coming. So we will be working with Jean, like she said, to, produce the publications, and then we'll take it on to the businesses and let them know.
In the ordinance, I specifically remember that if people, in order to keep more paper bags out of being recreated, if paper bags are reused paper bags are being used,
Correct.
there is no charge for that.
Right.
That if it's a
If it's
reused, yes. Yes.
So the store can use,
We can take in some and then we can reuse bags from, the whole point is to not create new trash and reuse.
So we are at the 6-month period, right? We're at the 6-month time before it enacts. And so we just wanted to make sure that we are getting the message out and getting ahead of this and being proactive instead of reactive. And so this is really good feedback. I'm looking forward to seeing the final copy. And hey, let's take the lead. Let's continue to take the lead on it.
okay. Anything else on that?
No,
Okay.
thank you.
Moving on to the next agenda item, which is 3.3, pedestrian and bike accessibility. So I know on Wednesday, March 6th, Dr. Yanni, the superintendent of the Lower Merion School District, just sent out an update about the walk zone. They're working with PennDOT to identify roadways and intersections that might be of concern, to implement pedestrian safety measures. So they're working with PennDOT to get an assessment, and they said within 2 weeks they'll have that, and that will affect the final decision about expanding the walk zone. So it sounds like it's still on the table in terms of whether that's happening or not. And then I'm also giving the borough staff a briefing about the Mainline Greenway on Monday, and then we're working with Lower Merion Township Building and Planning Department to do a coordination meeting on Monday as well, and to figure out what we need, what we're going to be exactly coordinating on. And then the Intergovernmental Committee, did you get a chance to talk to Curry?
Yeah, so, well, we've been emailing back and forth. So the school district has an intergovernmental committee that's specifically looking as part of, over the next couple of months, over the walk zone issues as part of that. So assuming that I'm available to go to those meetings, I will, Curry's invited us to attend. She may attend as well. So hopefully we will be, kept in the loop and provide feedback on the walk zone. She was pretty amenable. I had this idea basically of trying to come up with what I would call a preferred.
I'm sorry, Jeff and I have to.
Yeah.
Meeting,
I'll run your computer.
I also made Matt a co-host, so he also has control.
Does that stay or go down to your office?
What does?
The laptop.
Oh no, that stays.
That can stay. Okay.
Yeah.
All
right.
Thanks.
Bye. Have a good weekend.
So the idea is kind of, especially to figure out crossing Montgomery Avenue, a preferred walkway, especially from the south side of the borough, whether it's down Penn Road or crossing over to Penn Road or somewhere, but especially to get those kids that are across Montgomery Avenue. The idea is to have one place where all the kids from the borough are
I think
across.
Montgomery Avenue is a street to look at, and also Winwood Road.
Yeah, well, right, because somehow we have to get across
Right,
Winwood
yeah.
Road too. So, the idea is to have one corner, maybe with a crossing guard supplied by the school or whatever, but Curry, the school board president, seemed amenable to that. Actually, she said, yeah, that's what I was thinking too. So, that's the hope, is that we have and then, if it's morning, then the police department, if they're monitoring that, then there's a single place where they're trying to make sure that cars are going slow.
And then also Winwood Avenue and Penn Road see higher speeds on those roads as well, just because they're straight shots. And,
So, the advantage to those two streets is that, at least kind of my informal assessment, is they have good sidewalks. And they're removed from the street, so it's, my big thing, as you guys know, is like somebody on a narrow sidewalk that's adjacent to the road, stepping out into the road. We don't want kids doing that.
Take a look at the accident data at certain intersections, because that happens to be an intersection where there appears to be a lot of accidents.
Yeah.
So.
And there was a cyclist hit on Penn Road and Aubrey, that crossing, which is part of the Mainline Greenway.
Yeah. So I would look at accident data as part of
Yeah.
the analysis.
But that's part of what the school's waiting for from the county is.
I apologize, I have to get to work.
Okay. Sorry, we're gonna move. Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, it's okay.
And if there's nothing else on that, I'll move on to the next one, which is agenda item 3.4, Dudley and Price traffic study. John, did you want to talk about that?
Yeah, thank you. So following a crash up there, we had gotten several residents file my glove request for the installation of an all-way stop at the intersection. Additionally, we received a petition with over 50 signatures from residents throughout the borough indicating they felt concerned over that. Looking at some of the preliminary data that we would take, which would be crash data and volume data, because it's easy for us to just analyze, none of those indicated or met the need for a warrant based on the National Manual for Traffic Control Device Installations, which is what PennDOT refers everyone to for traffic control devices. So realistically, looking at it from those perspectives, there's no need for it. The 3 crashes that were there that were reportable over the last 4.5 years were all failure to stop for the stop signs, which are currently installed. So we'd be looking for indications of there's some hazard that a traffic control device would mitigate. But, you know, the 3 crashes were there were caused by people failing to obey the traffic control device that's in there. However, due to the level of concern based on the intersection, I kind of think a lot of it was warranted just on the dramatic nature of the crash.
Yeah, it's scary.
Yeah. My recommendation would be for Borough Council to consider having a traffic engineer just do an official study with sight lines and see if there's anything that maybe we don't install an all-way stop, but maybe there's some other mitigating factor, like, you know, if we want to increase the sight line in some way, either reducing parking on one side, moving it back beyond the 30 feet, something like that. So that's my recommendation, just so we have a solid, you know, professional opinion on that.
I have a question about the crash record. So in order for it to be on the record as a crash, does it need to like cause serious injury or like a certain amount of damage in the vehicle? Like, do you have?
So it depends. The way Pennsylvania classifies it is the vehicle has to be inoperable or someone has to be injured as a result of the crash. So it's a misnomer, I guess, but Pennsylvania has a non-reportable crash, which is a crash that, you know, 2 people ding their bumpers and you exchange information. That's the end of it. So that would be.
And those are not included in the crash data?
They wouldn't be included and they don't necessarily are reported either. It depends.
Yeah.
So if people just exchange information.
Yeah, the reason I bring that up is because I've just heard from so many residents about very close calls or even interactions that they've had there. There's parents who refuse to let their kids go to the bus stop there because they feel it's too dangerous. And I wonder if the crash data doesn't accurately reflect the actual, the level of danger that intersection sees.
So obviously if there was a large number of non-reportable crashes, you know, that could be an issue. I will say I don't believe that that's the case just based on, you know, throughout the day we would hear about these things. And I will say that I was dealing with an issue on Windsor where somebody claimed, you know, there was 3 crashes there in the last week, and, you know, I went out and met with the resident and we discussed it, and it was, well, someone said there was a crash, and it kind of seems like that person was talking to 3 people that were all talking about the same crash. So I think sometimes that stuff gets inflated. You saw the preliminary data that we have. We had moved our counters and speed devices from Chestnut over to Dudley and Price. On Price, we already had numbers for Dudley. And the average speed was like 16.5, one direction, 17.3 the other direction. So, you know, there's no, on a 25-mile-an-hour roadway, if we're achieving those speeds.
Right.
You know.
So it looks like the 3 crashes were the result of not speeding, but because the stop sign was ignored and
Correct.
the car. So it does seem like there's some issue with cars not complying with that stop sign. And I don't know if it's because on Essex and Price, there's a stop sign there, so I don't know if people are expecting to see one.
Which is interesting because that's actually where, and Matt, I always refer to you, is when you have too much signage, then it becomes ignored. I mean, the traffic engineer says that too. And I do think it's important that we follow the data and the evidence, because I agree with you, there becomes kind of I don't want to say urban legend, but a narrative that isn't accurate in the statistics. But that's not to say that there isn't a need for traffic calming measures there. And that's where I think your recommendation of the traffic engineer to say, okay, this doesn't warrant state regulations and signing, and in fact can do more harm, like it sounds like is somewhat of the issue, but there are ways like on Iona with the speed hump or the stormwater bump outs that we can address the experience of cars on that street, which is what I hear you saying.
If it's not a speeding issue, then traffic calming isn't necessarily.
Well, even 17 feels too fast on a lot of these
Oh, I
streets.
know.
Yeah.
Well, especially the ones where you have cars on parking. Are they going through the same stop sign? Like, I don't know that intersection. Is it always the same stop sign from a certain direction, or is it as they're coming down the hill? Or is it both ways?
It was Dudley's the one with the stop sign. I think we had two in one direction, one in the other direction.
Okay.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
but I don't, as far as, the hazards, I think we were talking about, was it Sabine and Wynwood, where it's an always stop, and we had two people that both stopped and both went to the intersection and collided with each other. So we can't really mitigate sometimes just bad decision making on the driver's part, which.
I mean, they're
Three
called
reportable-
accidents for a reason, right?
Yeah, 3 reported crashes over 4.5 years.
And any evidence of, distracted driving, people are looking at their cell phones or texting? Or...
People are generally unwilling to admit to that. We can assume that from time to time, but,
Yeah. Do you ever pull those phone data, when you really believe that you just don't? Yeah.
I mean, the other day, I got off the train and this young woman was on her phone, like clearly texting and driving up the wrong way on Haverford in the downtown business district. And everybody's like trying to wave to her, to say, hey lady, you're going in the wrong direction. And she's so busy looking at her phone, she didn't see any of us.
Yeah, I mean, you're fighting against the cultural norm of people distracted and.
I just saw somebody similar turned on to Narberth the wrong way, and it's just kind of like,
I mean, I can see people if they don't know the downtown area. I've seen people turn, off of Essex or Forest onto Narberth the wrong way, and people are screaming at them like, "Hey, wrong way, wrong way!" They know this woman was so engaged in her phone, she didn't see there were about 4 of us like trying to wave at her, and she was.
So the next steps are to follow up with the traffic engineer and then go forward with the traffic study there.
Yes, and again, that would look a little bit more in detail as far as because I think there's 5 justifications. I referenced 2, which would be traffic volume and speed. The other ones like sight lines and things, the traffic engineer would better speak to. But this way, and from experience, they're doing with this a lot more. They might be able to kind of provide that firsthand of we've had a similar problem and this is what we did.
Right.
So I think it'd be beneficial.
Okay. I know we have a public comment, but would you mind waiting until? Okay. We have some other things on the agenda. If there's no other discussion on that, we can move on. Next agenda item is 3.5, the loading and unloading zone for Unit Block Narberth Avenue.
So at the intersection there, I'll try to make it quick, we've noticed there's numerous parking violations, and we were enforcing the same violation over and over again, which leads us to believe that maybe there's a larger problem. Go back to, and you can gain compliance from enforcement, but are we treating a problem that maybe we can resolve that way? And in talking to some of the people there is a issue with not being sufficient space for loading and unloading vehicles for the businesses there. So they tend to park in the no parking here corner zone, which creates a hazard for any vehicles. Not that there's a lot of traffic with bridge being closed, but the potential exists. So we looked at the potential of making that first spot a loading and unloading zone only. Similar to the other side on Narberth. This way it allows people to stop. They can, do their short business as far as moving things in and out of the car. The reduction of the parking would be a minimal impact because we still have the municipal lot available, which is not overly used. So, and it's still the same meter parking, so it wouldn't be a cost increase or adverse effect to the people that are looking to park.
This is at the base of the bridge or on the other
Yes,
side?
the base of it. We still have loading and unloading on the other side.
Okay.
Is there any requirement for notifying the nearby businesses on that street?
I'll defer to Matt on that one. I don't believe if we're just taking away a metered spot that we'd have to.
Can you do that on that side? Since it's
I don't think so. I think that's in our purview to do that. I mean, I think it would be good practice to, to communicate that to the business community, but I don't think we're required.
So as long as we have the roadway. So we're-
Okay, so we can,
We can control the roadway.
okay.
So, I mean, we can, definitely work towards that. We can draw something up as far as,
I think it
Either
would be a
requesting
good
input.
idea just to let them know.
okay.
And then, okay, was there anything else on that?
No, that was it.
Okay, thank you for that. And moving on to the next agenda item, which is committee reports. I don't think we have any reports from the EAC or the PAC this month. So moving down to departmental reports. We have the fire company report that was included in the packet, and then 5.2 police report.
Just in addition to those two things I mentioned, we obviously are still focusing on the EV spots, just making sure that we're getting compliance with, as you mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, non-EV vehicles parking there. We had 9 violations that were issued through February for non-EV vehicles parking during the 8 to 5 zone. There has been some confusion with regards to the signage, so we're looking to try to clarify that it is only 8 to 5, just because it's pretty confusion on both sides. People with EVs that are looking to park there and charge at particular times, people with non-EVs that, are parking at night because that was what the ordinance allowed. So we're going to try to clear up that signing. I talked to Jeff about it. But again, a lot of it is just, trying to mitigate some of those issues. I'll be honest with you, across from the post office is just, it's tough by the time I've seen Paul get out and they're running across from the post office. So, that's almost a loading zone, but, we're trying, he's there a lot,
Right.
trying to make sure that it's complied with.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good example of, that probably is not a good place for the EV charger, but yet we have to go by where there's poles and
Yes.
accessibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're working on it.
Doing what he can do. Yeah.
So, but I think the message for the rest of the borough has been well received as far as, we're limiting their spots to be only from 8 to 5, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And that concludes our agenda. We have a last public comment.
Thank you.
Please state your name and
Hi.
3 minutes.
And address.
My name is Joseph Stratton. I live at 402 Dudley, which is the corner of Dudley and Price. I'm a Narberth resident, homeowner. And just to follow up on the conversation about Dudley and Price, thank you so much for looking into this intersection. I wanted to submit some additional data of my own observations. I have 4 copies I'll share in my email, so it can be part of the record. I've seen 3 crashes there in the last 2 years. I understand that there were only 3 that were reportable in 4.5 years. I also witnessed what I call a lot of near misses. I define a near miss as when 2 cars are entering the intersection and at least one has to hit their brakes to avoid a crash. And I started recording every time I see a near miss and just jot down what occurred. And so I'll share all of that data with you, so it's available for you. What I observe in each case of I saw 13 near misses in 15 days from February 19th to March 4th. I work full-time, so this is just a small subset of what might occur. It's just when I happen to be outside and observe. What I observe is a car coming either north or south on Dudley. They either full or mostly stop. They look and they see a car coming on Price, either east or west, and then the car on Dudley enters the intersection in front of the car on Price. The car on Price has the right of way because Dudley has a full stop and there's no stop for Price. I agree that I don't see speed as an issue. I don't see distraction as an issue. And again, it's cars going either north or south on Dudley. It's equally divided between the two. And it looks like the drivers look directly and see the car on Price, and then enter the intersection in front of that car.
You're expecting them to stop.
So I'm not a traffic safety expert. I'm a
Yeah.
physician. I've got expertise in public health, public safety. I'm also trained as, in analyzing human behavior. But, no expertise there necessarily. What I observe is that the drivers on Dudley seem to perceive or anticipate that that the car on Price is going to stop, and that's why they entered the intersection. There was an accident that occurred, the recent one, where the car flipped over, where the driver on Price, I went to make sure he and his daughter were okay, and he said, I just thought they were going to stop. And he entered the intersection. Maybe different on the report, so I don't want to claim anything different than the report. That's what I was told.
Is there,
That matches the report,
Okay.
right? Because
Oh,
they're
I
coming
didn't see
down
the report.
Price.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, he stopped at the intersection and entered the intersection in front of the car on the
Is there's no sign on the stop signs that says oncoming traffic doesn't stop?
There's a big yellow sign that says that, yes.
Oh, there is?
On both, yep,
But
on
they
both
still
sides.
don't seem
It
to.
used to be the small white sign, and now it's a big yellow reflective sign.
Okay, but much like the giant do not enter
No,
sign.
I
Correct,
just said
correct.
before, people just get
Yeah,
used to it and then they don't process it.
Well, what in science we call a natural experiment. One block up, Dudley and Sabine, it's a much busier street because Sabine has a lot more traffic
Right.
on it than Price does. There's a four-way stop there. I've asked my neighbors who live on that corner, when was the last time you've seen an accident here? I don't have accident data. They say, I don't remember seeing one here. And so, not a traffic safety expert. I've read everything that's posted on for the Department of the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation. It doesn't seem to be a speed issue. It seems to be a perception issue.
Yeah. Richard, can you please be sure to email us all those data? Because that's what, Chief String, to your point, where the traffic engineer needs to come in and do the behavioral piece and look at the street and reconfigure. So.
And it's really watching. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. I think what I would recommend also for my neighbors who live there is just sitting there for 4 hours and watching. It's a lot of time to pay a
That's
traffic
very
engineer.
valuable data.
But I do it for free. Because I garden and I have a fire pit that I love hanging out at. I hope fire pits are legal.
Yeah, just don't ask those questions.
Yes, sorry. I enjoy gardening.
And sometimes there are flames there.
So sometimes my friends visit. And just having observed more carefully, this is what I'm perceiving. Yeah, I'll give you all a copy and I'll email it to, where would I email it?
I'll give you my card.
Email it to me and I
Oh,
can share it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. And my biggest worry, and as I wrote, there are dozens and dozens of pedestrians and cyclists and kids who cross that intersection every day. I witness dozens every month of near misses. I've got 13 examples in 15 days. And again, in each of these examples, I call it a near miss. It's that somebody had to hit their brakes to avoid a collision. And I've worked in children's ERs. I'm a family doc. Seeing the damage that happens to cars, it's going to be fatal or life-changing for a pedestrian, a cyclist, or a kid. And I would just hate to see any of us in a position of having to look at a family member in the eye and say, God, I wish there was something we could have done. I don't know the right thing to do. From the perception issue, it looks like a four-way stop is what people are expecting. It's unbelievable to me that people don't give the right of way. They don't. And unless we post you on the corner and hand out tickets so that they learn their lesson at $200 a pop, or we post a four-way stop sign, I don't know what else we could do to prevent a death.
I can say, my street of Iona is also a terrible street for different reasons. And the traffic engineer, Mike did a really good job at listening to residents and the experience of living on the street, because that is one important data point. Working with G-String to look at those data evaluation and traffic studying. And Mike really did initiate some kind of low-hanging fruit tools that changed the experience of that street. we're only on the first iteration and it is a pilot. So I do think that we now have this approach that is pretty comprehensive of saying, we do have to follow the law, we have to do, stop signs that are warranted, but there are also other tools in that kit that changes the pedestrian experience and traffic behavior.
And I loved how Iona has turned from a speedway into a much safer,
Just those 2 speed bumps, I mean, they make
That's-
sense.
One mid-block, but it's a visual,
dramatic
and
change.
it changed the culture of the street. And it's also, we're gonna use the stormwater bump out there. So
It's great.
there are tools that, to your point, none of us are traffic engineers, but that we really seem to have a good process.
It's wonderful. And I just wanted from reading through what's posted on the State Department of Transportation, those are guidelines. It doesn't appear to be a law. They're guidelines of, am I incorrect in my read?
It just becomes very difficult for us to enforce it if we don't follow PennDOT's guidelines. And so while they say guidelines, it behooves us to follow what PennDOT's guidelines are from an enforcement standpoint.
Totally agree. But I just want to be clear, they're not criteria, they're not law. They're guidelines that should be followed. But it's the first sentence in the statement, these are guidelines, not criteria.
There is other language in there about other things that can be taken into consideration besides the crash data and things like that. So I think that's worth looking at.
Yeah, there might be a better solution than a stop sign. Right, we should ask them.
I know it's with the speed limit, but there was a municipality in Pennsylvania that artificially reduced the speed limit beyond what is in the manual, and they got taken to court over it. So, because, while it's not a law, they basically say these are the guide rails, so you should be operating effectively in this area.
That makes sense.
So that's consideration as well.
That makes great sense. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Joe, for.
Thanks for staying late.
Of course, please, just.
And this is a good example where, boots on the ground, getting input from the public, we can't stand out there for 4 hours at a time.
No, I mean, you can come
So
garden
keep
with me.
gardening and
Yeah.
keep, because it's really useful for us, to get that.
Thank you. And again, I don't know what the right answer is, and thank you so much for your interest. I've seen too many people in hospital ERs.
None of us want to get that call, right?
Yes.
None of us want Chief String to report at the next meeting that somebody was sick.
Yes.
I mean, I'm the pedestrian, vehicles are vehicles, you can get them fixed, kids are.
I always tell my kids, car versus person, car wins.
Absolutely.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, we're adjourned at 11:17
Thank you.
Oh.
Thanks, oh wait,
You got it?
Matt, if you're done, I'll end this.